Every summer, 1,200 American men and women begin studying at West Point Military Academy. But before any of them see a classroom, they begin 7 weeks of basic training. And before the summer ends, a good portion of these cadets drop out. A group of researchers wanted to find out what characteristic was it inside of those cadets that made it, as opposed to the ones who dropped out. Was it physical strength? Was it athleticism? Was it intellect? Was it leadership ability, or just overall talent? And it turns out it was none of those things. The best predictor for success that they found was a characteristic called grit. Grit means having stamina. Grit means having passion. Grit means sticking to your long-term goals, not just for a day, not just for a week, not for a month, but oftentimes for years. It's almost like grit is that feeling inside of you that allows you to pick yourself back up after you fail. It's that thing that allows you to continue to move forward, even though it's difficult, even though it's hard. It's the reason that you wake up in the morning and say, I have to win today. I have to fight for this today. Grit has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with intellect. Grit has everything to do with mental toughness. Numerous articles and research papers have been done on grit, and they've concluded that grit is just as important, if not more important than talent when it comes to being successful. So you're probably wondering, how can we develop grit? Is it something you're born with? Is it something that you can learn? And the honest answer is, no one really knows. But what we do know is that grit isn't developed when life is easy. It's not developed when everything goes perfectly. It's developed when there's struggle. It's developed when there's adversity. Psychologists believe that there are 5 characteristics that help develop grit. The first characteristic is courage. And the reason courage is so hard to develop is because it starts when you're one step outside of your comfort zone. So if you want to develop grit, you've got to start with having a little bit of courage. That might mean going out for a new sport, trying out for a school activity you've never done before. It might mean talking to a kid in the halls that you pass every day, but you've never had the courage to actually say something. Sometimes courage is found when you stand up for people, whether that's online or in person. There are tons of ways to develop courage, but the first place courage starts is one step outside of your comfort zone. And the next characteristic is intentionality. I don't believe that grit is developed on accident. I think you have to be intentional about it. Intentionality means waking up every day with a plan, you have a goal, and you have to commit to that. Pick the tasks that are difficult for you. Pick the tasks that you don't like to do. Create a plan, set a goal, be intentional, and commit to it. And that's how you start to develop grit in your life. Another characteristic to help us develop grit is endurance. And what endurance means is you don't just start the race, but you finish, and you finish well. The only way to develop endurance is when you're tired, exhausted, you're worn out, you don't think you can go any farther, and then you push on, you commit, and you follow through. If you want to develop endurance in your life, find the areas where you're losing steam or having a hard time completing a task. So for you seniors, a great opportunity you have to develop endurance is don't let senior-itis settle in. You've got an opportunity to make your senior year great. So commit to it, finish, and finish well. And the next characteristic we have to learn to develop is resilience. Resilience means you've got to get tougher. So when things get difficult and everything's not going your way, you've got to anchor down and you've got to push through. You don't quit. No matter how painful it might be, no matter how long it might take, you have to keep pushing through. This means you don't quit or give up at the first sign of failure. You don't let your past mistakes define you. You have the mental toughness and resilience to continue to push forward, and that's how you develop grit. And the 5th element we have to develop is the pursuit of excellence, not perfection. Let me break this down for you. You're not going to be perfect. A lot of people let the fear of not doing things perfectly hold them back from taking risks. Some of the most successful business people I know, they strive for excellence, not perfection. Because when you strive for excellence, you understand failure will be a part of the process. It's inevitable, it's going to happen. Striving for excellence allows you to develop grit to persevere and push through even when you fail. A person with grit understands that the world doesn't assert itself on you, you assert yourself on the world. That's why we love the underdog story so much. We love to root for the person that maybe doesn't have the talent, or maybe doesn't have the education, or maybe doesn't have the experience. We love watching people overcome obstacles. We love seeing people be successful in the face of difficult times. And the reason why is we love this idea of grit. So to all you underdogs out there, all you kids that haven't had life handed to you, those of you that have to struggle, those of you that have to fight for everything that you've got, those of you that have to work your way through high school to pay for the things that you need, keep going, keep pushing, keep fighting. Learn to develop those 5 characteristics, and I promise you, you'll develop grit. And the reason why it's so important is your grit is what the world needs the most.
Good morning, Solanco. Today is Tuesday, March 13th. The weather for today is partly cloudy with a high of 40, and the lunch for today is traveling taco and rice.
Attention boys interested in playing soccer for Solanco. There's an open gym at Providence Elementary tonight from 6 to 8.
Any student who has agreed to be a host for student from St. Baby's in England should plan to attend a meeting on Wednesday night with their parents here at the high school at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held by Dr. Shroom, and we will explain the details of the trip and a role of the host family. Please let Mrs. Leininger know if you cannot attend.
Seniors who signed up for scholarships through the Kaleidoscope website located on the guidance website are reporting some issues. There is a help document below the link on the guidance website if you are experiencing any trouble. As always, please see a counselor with any questions.
Today's events are Mr. Solenko Practice Auditorium 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., Varsity Baseball versus Eastern York scrimmage home 4 p.m., JV Baseball at Eastern York scrimmage dismiss at 1:50 p.m., Varsity Softball versus Kennerdale scrimmage home 4 p.m., JV Softball at Kennerdale scrimmage dismiss at 2:10 p.m.
We would like to wish the following a happy birthday, Chase Charles. Please stop by the library and pick up your birthday treat.
On behalf of the WSLC News team, I'm Tasha. Have a thoracic Tuesday, Solenko.